Coming up on Bloom, how summer fun activities could be impacting your brain health.
And we all know that warm water will have a tendency to propagate and perpetuate bacterial growth.
And the food whisperer, Chef Adrienne Falcone Godsell, has foods to boost your cognitive function.
When we're first formed, the gastrula and the spinal column are the first things that are formed.
Wow.
So gut brain health is everything.
And find out how sleep impacts brain health. We'll have all that and more as Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging, starts now. I'm Gayle Guyardo. Welcome to Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging. Increased humidity and pollution are leading to more waterborne illnesses. Here with more on the link between summertime bacteria exposure and your brain health is behavioral scientist Dr. Gino Calura. It's so great to see you.
Such a pleasure, Gayle.
So we are starting to hear more and more about bacteria and its impact on our brain health. And from what I was researching it, a lot of it comes from waterborne illnesses.
That's exactly right. Like, truth of the matter is that we're in an incredible crisis right now, and a lot of people don't understand the link between environmental impact and infrastructure in general, right, as a country, and some of the connections that we're seeing, because look, it's summertime, right? We're going to the beach, we're hitting the lake, right? But we also kind of recognize that, look, it's really hot. The water's warmer than it typically is as well, right? And we all know that warm water will have a tendency to propagate and perpetuate bacterial growth, right? And so we're seeing a lot more of that, and the bacteria is coming from places that, quite frankly, we wouldn't think of where it's coming.
Right. I was like, even at public pools,
Yes.
that could be a major problem. You see them putting up signage all the time at local beaches as well, that the water's not safe to get into. So what do we need to do to protect ourselves and our families?
So first and foremost, right, I want everyone to really get comfortable and understand this concept, what's called inflow and infiltration, right? And so what does that mean? So there's over 76 million homes in the United States, right, that have outdated piping, right? Now, why does that matter? Why is that important? Well, look, all of our wastewater and sewage has to go somewhere, right? And so especially summertime, we're dealing with storms. We're dealing with a much higher rate of rainfall than we typically would see. So when we have piping and infrastructure that isn't allowing sufficient treatment of that water, and there's an overflow of it, it's got to go somewhere. So where does it typically go? Well, it hits our waterways, right? And so you're talking about water that's got E. coli, Enterococcus, Vibrio, different types of bacteria that can turn into things like meningitis. It can cause myocarditis. It can cause issues with your GI tract. And at the end of the day, it's because the perpetuation of bacteria, because of this water that's heading into local waterways, it is flourishing bacteria like we've never seen before. And so look, we have got to start and take a good look at what's going on in our local community. What is happening within our local infrastructure and the integrity of the sewage system, as well as water systems in general. And if we don't have a very clear understanding of that, it's kind of hard to know when we go to a local lake or we go to the pool or whatever the case is, you don't know what you're stepping into, right? And so we have to start doing our due diligence, right? So a great place to start is go to the EPA's website. If you're going to go to a local beach, right, see if the EPA is monitoring the water at that beach, because look, there's thousands of beaches in the United States. Truth of the matter is that the EPA can only monitor about 40% of the beaches that we go to. That means 60% of public waterways like that, they're not monitored. So they have no idea what's lurking in that water, right? And that's really, really frightening. But make sure the beach that you're going to is monitored by the EPA and at least get a baseline reading of what's going on and is it safe or not.
Okay, and then so other than something blaring like meningitis and hopefully there are vaccines,
Sure.
things that you can put into place, but is there anything that we should be looking at that maybe we're dealing with a bacteria overload, like signs and symptoms in our bodies?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, right, because when we're in the water, right, I mean, sometimes water gets in our nose or ears, right? So the basic things, right? Are you dealing with an ear infection or nasal? Are you nasally, right? Are you stuffed up, right? But also headaches. Are you experiencing headaches, right? Do you have things like AFib, your heart rate, right? If you're dealing with myocarditis, you're going to be able to start to feel like, wait a minute, something's not right, right? So at the onset of any sort of symptomology, you need to go see your healthcare provider and say, look, I've been in a body of water. I don't know if it's connected to it or not, but you need to be very mindful and pay attention. If you get water clogged in your ear, get it out immediately, right? If you start to have a nasal infection, get it out immediately, right? And then GI issues as well. Are you nauseous, right? Do you have diarrhea? All things that are significant and combined, right, with issues that are tied to bacteria and bacterial overflow in the body.
Wow, this is a lot to think about. And I think to your point, researching different municipalities, see what's going on with your drinking water. Maybe you need to invest in a filtration system. I mean, there's a lot to think about.
It's overwhelming, Gayle, truly. Like, and as a father, right, I started unpacking a lot of this stuff, and look, you know, there's over 2 million miles of piping in this country that are completely in need of rehabilitation and replacement. Why? Because they're made out of lead, right? And so you look at the same, that water that's getting shipped out, that is water that's hitting waterways that we go to and enjoy all the time during the summer, right? And so the problem's much deeper than just a simple, let me just show up and go for a swim. You have to really be mindful. If you have an open cut, for example, and you go into that water and it's bacteria infested, you have no idea. You could turn septic over something that small because of the bacteria that's in that water, right? So we really have to do our due diligence about where we're going and what it is that we're doing when we get there.
All right, Dr. Gino, thank you so much. This has been a really interesting discussion.
Absolutely, Gayle, thank you.
We're going to post this story on bloomtampabay.com, and when we come back, psychologist Dr. Daniel Bond is deep diving into the stages of sleep and what happens to our bodies during each stage. We'll be right back. You're watching Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging, saving lives through early detection. Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today. We are back with must-know facts about sleep stages, which allow the brain and body to recuperate and develop. Joining me now with everything that you need to know is psychologist and co-host of the Sleep Takeout podcast, Dr. Daniel Bond. Dr. Bond, it's always so good to see you.
Thank you, Gayle. You too. Lovely to be back.
So let's talk about why we need to sleep in the first people. But a lot of people think it's like, oh, it's optional. No, we need to sleep.
Oh, no, yeah. No, your body needs it. And in fact, if you don't get it, your body will eventually force you to get it. It might be a little prolonged, like you might be awake for more than a day or two, but your body will make sure it happens. And so really the purpose of sleep is for a couple different things. And to be 100% clear, we don't know everything about sleep yet. We're learning a lot more, but we really kind of think that sleep has a lot of purposes of, number one, rest and renewal, also healing that's happening in your body, as well as memory consolidation, and also getting rid of information that your brain just doesn't need to hold on to. So there's a lot of different purposes of sleep. So a lot's happening that we're going to talk more about today.
Okay, I want to show, as you know, I'm data obsessed.
I'm
wearing a watch. I'm wearing an Oura ring. I wanted to show you a couple of results that I have. So on the first one, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot wrong going there because I'm mostly in the blue. But as we keep moving on, you're going to see that there's a thread of latency issues on the second one we're about to show you.
Yep.
And then on the third one that we're going to show you, here's the second one you can see. So this one you can see restfulness fair, still the latency there. And then there's another one that shows that my...
this was a rougher night for you.
Yeah, the efficiency's not so great.
Correct.
So by looking at that data, what does it tell you about my sleep?
Great, yeah. So for a few things to kind of pay attention to. Number one, your sleep efficiency is in general probably the number to pay the most attention to. And what this is this is a number that compares the amount of time that you spent in bed versus the amount of time that you actually spent asleep. And ideally, we want to get that sleep efficiency to about 85% or higher.
Okay.
The caveat with, with the ring devices or the watches or all these other devices, the caveat on those is that they're about 80% accurate. Some are a little less accurate. So you're not necessarily getting the most complete data, but this is better than no data. So I think it can be helpful.
Right, and at least you're getting the data every single night. So if you do see, that's why I wanted to show three.
Absolutely.
If you just start to see patterns in certain areas, even if it's 80% off, you're still seeing something. So what am I doing wrong with the latency? And then I don't think I'm getting enough REM or deep sleep most nights.
So we'll talk about a little bit of each of these. So maybe the first one we can talk about is total sleep, because this is what most people kind of fixate on when they're like, gosh, I need like 8 hours in bed a night. And I would say this number is usually the least relevant for the most part, even though everybody talks about that the most.
Okay.
Because really, you don't want quantity of sleep, you want quality of sleep. And that's where it comes back to that efficiency part for you. And so when it comes to latency, what that's referring to is the amount of time that it takes from when you lay down in bed before you actually are asleep.
Okay.
And for most people, you should be sleepy when you go to sleep. And what I mean, or get in bed, meaning you should be able to fall asleep within about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. But I would say if you haven't fallen asleep within 20 minutes, that actually tells me that you might be tired but not sleepy. So then you want to get up, get out of bed, go do something until you feel that that sleepiness return, and then try and go to sleep again.
Okay, because
Does that make
what
sense?
I was trying to do, and maybe other people do that, especially women out there, I wake up a lot in the night. So I'm like, I got this figured out. I'm just going to go to bed really early because I know I'm going to wake up in the night, and then at least I'll get 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and then maybe I can get back to sleep and grab another 2 and hit my 7 to 8 quota.
Yep.
Bad plan, you say.
Bad plan.
Ah,
Yes,
man.
yes. Let's switch it around a little bit. And the
Okay.
intention's good though. So
Okay.
so I love that. So what you want to do is really you want to view your bedtime as a not to go to bed before time. And what I mean by that is that you want to make sure that you stay awake, stay alert until this time. And if you're sleepy at that time, then you can go to bed. But if you're not sleepy at that time, let's say it's 11, 11:30, if you're not sleepy then, I would encourage you to not go to sleep. The reason why is your sleep pressure has to be high enough to where you're naturally going to enter into that restful state.
Okay.
If you're not, you're just going to kind of stare at the ceiling or do something else. Now, middle of the night wake-ups, which you just kind of mentioned earlier, these are, number one, really common. A lot of people wake up in the middle of the night. So the key thing to think about this, and we'll talk about this with sleep stages, the key thing to think about this is how can you re-enter that sleep as easily and ideally as quickly as possible. And so what I mean by that is when you get up, when you maybe use the restroom or you go someplace different, do things that kind of keep the lighting low, do things that keep the stimuli. What I mean by that is like TV, watches, phones. In fact, I encourage most people, do not check your phone or orient yourself to what time it is at all in the middle of the night. Make sure you set your wake up alarm and then put a towel on top of that phone or put something to where you do not know what time it is at all, because your brain, it's really smart. You'll start to recognize that you're like, why am I waking up at 2:32 several days in a row? It's because your brain knows what time it is. So you actually want to try and disorient your mind from what time it is when you wake up in the middle of the night.
Okay, we don't have a ton of time left, but let's go through these sleep stages, the most important thing.
Yes.
Because you've got the NREM, and that's light sleep.
Yep, so what these are stages, so it's N1, 2, and 3, and these are actual sleep stages. So the first stage is this light sleep. That's where you're probably awake, probably not, slightly going into a deeper sleep. Then stage 2 is a little bit deeper, harder to wake up from you. And then stage 3 is really the deepest sleep. Stage 3 is the sleep that you're really getting a lot of that healing and that renewal kind of happening in your body. Kind of growth hormones are actually being circulated throughout your nervous system. And then stage 4 is REM sleep. And REM is actually technically not sleep. Your body is actually paralyzed and your brain is wide awake. And the differences between these stages have everything to do with the brainwave activity. Now, the key thing to note about this is that in the beginning of the night, we go through multiple cycles of N1, 2, 3, and REM. And so when we talk about getting better rest for you, we don't want more hours of that. We want more cycles. We want more cycles of N1, 2, 3, and REM for Gayle. The more cycles you can have with less interruptions, the more rested you're going to feel. So for example, if you had 3 hours of multiple N1, 2, 3, and REM cycles without disruption, you would feel much more rested than if you had 5 hours of sleep in bed, but maybe you woke up, then you went back to sleep, those types of things. So really it's about quality of sleep, not quantity of sleep.
Dr. Baum, we need to do a whole hour on this.
We can.
We got to crack the sleep code one of these days. I'm going to pitch that at the next Bloom meeting.
I love it.
In the meantime,
we should totally do
yeah.
it. Yes, yeah.
In the meantime, we're going to share more about your sleep stages and Dr. Baum's advice on BloomTampaBay.com. And when we come back, the author of The Busy Brain Cure, Dr. Romy, is in with the treacherous 3 things you should avoid for better brain health. We'll be right back. You're watching Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging, saving lives through early detection. Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today. Welcome back to Bloom. There has been no shortage of news about the terrible triple A's recently: ADD, ADHD, and anxiety. Right now, for many patients, doctors are turning to the so-called cure-all treatment of Adderall. But medical experts say pharmaceutical stimulants can be just as addictive as other manufactured narcotics, and the results are often the same. Joining us now is the author of The Busy Brain Cure, triple board-certified physician, Dr. Romy Mushtaq. Dr. Romy, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to see you.
Gayle, thank you so much for having me about this critical topic in adults that I don't feel like we're talking enough about.
You're right, because typically when we talk about this subject, it's based on children, but you say 30 plus.
Yes.
This is a major problem.
You know, in looking at what chronic stress and burnout is doing to adults in the workplace, I came up with these symptoms and looking at 17,000 people who took our busy brain test. The number one thing that people are saying is, I can no longer focus at work. Is it just my attention span? Am I burned out? Or is it ADD or ADHD? And the medical literature is actually showing that now, more than 15 years ago, more and more adults have ADD or anxiety. ADHD isn't as common to start in adults if you didn't have it as a child, but attention deficit, yes, coupled with anxiety.
Yeah, and you say this really became a problem when we were just like from touching this iPad to the dopamine rush that I get from looking at social media. I mean, we have so much information coming at us. You say it's actually rewired our brains.
You know, our brain is wired to want to pay attention and focus. But when we touch a phone or a device, or we type an email, or we check another item off of our to-do list, it gives us this dopamine high and we feel good. But that's just like taking crack or cocaine or a shopping addiction. You bought something online on clearance. You kind of get a high and a low, and then you want to do it again. And that's rewiring our brain to have attention deficit. And then what happens? The overprescription of stimulants like Adderall and Ritalin.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what are these pharmaceuticals doing to our brains?
Yeah, listen, I want to be clear. You have to talk to your doctor. There are people that get screened and need the medications. But what we know is since the global pandemic, 85% of all stimulants that are prescribed in the world are done here in the United States. That some people are misusing this for peak performance to get through a workday in a tech job or through medical school. And that's where I'm most concerned, because it's also leading to increased levels of anxiety and disturbing our sleep.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And I know you're out with your new book, The Busy Brain Cure. You have an 8-week program. You say it's possible to reverse some of the damage that we've done.
It completely is. And in 8 weeks, we start to do micro habits or little brain shifts that stack upon each other that make you put down your digital device and actually reset the busy brain center and the inflammation that's going on in the brain. But here's the key in the book. We give you a lab slip to take to your doctor. We want to look. Are you wondering, is there something deeper going on in my brain or in my hormones that could be causing that lack of focus? And guess what? It turns out in men and women, it is both a thyroid hormone and your vitamin D as in dog levels.
Yeah, and what's so interesting, until you meet a doctor like yourself, who you actually stepped away from clinical medicine. You were a prominent neurologist, you were firing on all cylinders. Your own health led you to make a big life change.
Yeah. You know, the chronic stress can kill, and it almost killed me, and I should have known better. I'm a doctor. And in my global journey to understand why was I suffering so much, I started to learn Eastern wisdom and came back and got board certified in integrative medicine, the science of wellness. And then in the last 7 years, working with corporate clients who also have a busy brain, difficulty focusing and anxiety, I was compelled to do the research. 17,000 people took our busy brain test to help me understand what's going on so we could find the cure.
Yeah, and I want to circle back because I wanted you to tell a little bit about your backstory so that people understand you come from medicine.
Yes.
Yet you completely believe in taking it the extra mile. You say the blood tests that we're doing, let's say for our thyroids, which I suffered for many, many years, and I was just getting the regular blood panel, but you say that's not enough of a snapshot to get a true understanding of how to treat a patient.
Thank you. I'm so glad that we're going to double click on that issue. You know, in traditional medicine, I too went through that, and I was a doctor. I thought, gosh, something seems off. I wonder if I have thyroid. And most doctors will check maybe 1-2 labs. There's a panel of 8 thyroid labs that are so important to check. In women in the United States, 1 in 8 women are walking around with low thyroid levels, and maybe the only symptoms they're having is anxiety and difficulty focusing, and they're self-shaming them, and it's with mental and brain health issues, not realizing that there's a dangerous thyroid condition underlying that. It's so important. And in chapter 16 of the book, we have the entire lab list for you to download and take into your doctor to get this checked, because you can fix it and reverse it and find your focus and tame anxiety and sleep again.
And it's amazing, and it's life-changing. And you would think, like, I went to doctor after doctor after doctor. I'm one of the statistics of the 1 in 8 women, and I couldn't lose the weight. I could not sleep. I could not focus. My anxiety levels were at an all-time high. And just by getting the proper blood panel, and it might be, you might need your medicine compound, and you might need different things, but to have this looked at can be a game changer.
What's better than when you and I went through this is now there are more and more doctors that are studying integrative and functional medicine, and this is a board certification. It's the science of wellness. So we know the science of disease, you're learning the science of wellness, and then we know how to help your thyroid and peak performance, because your thyroid recipe might be a little bit different than my thyroid recipe. There's not a one pill or one supplement fixes all. But the thing is, thank you for sharing all your symptoms, and I'm sorry for what you went through, because you're not alone. I wasn't alone. But gosh, I don't know about you. When I was going through this, I sure felt so alone and shamed. And it was a thyroid gland that needed to be optimized. And here I am, turning 50 this year. I feel cognitively sharper and calmer than at 25 when I graduated from medical school.
Yeah, it's true. I feel the same way, and that's why I keep talking about it again and again, because I know there's so many, especially women out there, that suffer in silence. They don't know what to do. Your book, an 8-week journey that you take your readers through so they can pivot and get their brain health and their hormones balanced.
And it's not going to get in the way of parenting, taking care of your elderly loved ones, or your job. It's 8 micro habits that stack upon each other week after week that take 30 minutes of your time, that start with restoring your sleep and then boosting your daytime energy levels. And the best part is, Gayle, you don't have to go on a diet. Yay!
Yay, no diet. You had me at that. Well, Dr. Romy, thank you so much. It is such a pleasure to have you on Bloom.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to share Dr. Romy's story on BloomTampaBay.com, and we will be back with more Bloom right after this, so don't go away. Welcome back to Bloom. Today we're boosting your brain health, and what you can eat can directly impact your cognitive function. Joining me now with more is the food whisperer, holistic chef, Adrienne Falcone-Godsell. It is so great to see you.
Hi, Gayle. It's so good to see you. Thank you for having me on Bloom.
So there are so many things that we can do to really boost our brain health.
Yeah, there's so many, like you said, there's so many different ways because there's so many different aspects to it, and I'm hitting it from the gut health because
they're connected.
They're so connected. They're so connected. When we're first formed, the gastrula and the spinal column are the first things that are formed.
Wow.
So gut-brain health is everything.
Yeah, it is, it is. So cauliflower, this is one of my favorite things that you make.
Yeah, I like to revisit this just because when we are talking about gut health, staying away from starchy carbs, and mashed potatoes, of course, is one of those things that it's a comfort food, right? We can use the mashed cauliflower instead. So we just cook our cauliflower till it's nice and soft. My other talking point here is using ghee, which is like a hyper clarified butter. So you're not having any of the proteins, you're just having the good clean fat. And you do want it to be pasture raised, you want it to be grass fed.
And let's not forget about your secret ingredient that I always forget to put, because I follow this recipe nonstop, but it's that white pepper.
Put that little dash of white pepper in. Just that little bitty hint of white pepper really makes a difference and just finishes it so nicely, whether it's mashed potatoes, which we're talking about avoiding right now, or if we're talking about our mashed cauliflower. And of course, I like to boil my cauliflower with some garlic directly in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that way you just have that flavor. I have a fork there for you.
Thank you.
And
I'll take a
we
little
may need a little bit more salt
sample.
in there. It's that magic salt thing also,
Yes,
right, with our mashed cauliflowers.
And
that
you use
have
Himalayan?
To. I use the Himalayan pink salt, or the Celtic salt also is one of those really big ones as far as your healthiest salts.
It's so good.
Yeah, it's just comforting.
You really cracked me. I mean, this really tastes like mashed potatoes, but you're getting the health benefits of the cauliflower.
Yeah.
What else do we have?
I'm talking about our sauerkraut. We're talking natural ferments. Again, healthy gut, healthy body. Your sauerkraut, your naturally fermented sauerkraut, has the highest amount of beneficial probiotics in it versus anything you can buy, whether it's prescription form or over the counter. And the thing is that when you're making it yourself, you're getting your own natural environmental bacteria, which means it's almost personalized to your body and to your home and to your family that way.
So how did you make that?
All you do is you take your cabbage, you're going to chop it up really fine so you can put it in a food processor, or you can chop it up by hand, and then you add the salt, and you're just going to mass it and pound it. They say pound it for about 5 minutes, and it will start to break down, and you'll get a little bit of liquid. You can cheat at that point and either throw it directly into your jars, 1/3 cabbage, 2/3 water, and or you could let it sit for 20 minutes and then do it, and then you just throw it in a corner and you just give it a lot of love and say, I'll see you when you start getting bubbly.
I love it. I love it. So
And
talk
that's
to me
what I
about
have.
this.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of kraut there for you if
Okay,
you'd like to
take
taste
that.
that. And all you need is a teaspoon, and you drink it at night before you
good.
go to sleep, and it helps you sleep better.
Really? Oh
There's
man, I
some-
should be drinking a gallon of that so I
Yeah,
can get some
there's
better sleep.
something about, there's a specific hormone that the bacteria creates, and it helps you sleep better at night. And I do sleep so much better when I have my kraut juice at night before I go to bed.
And what is this? That looks like a mocktail.
It is kind of in the summertime. We want our lemonade. It's
Yeah.
a fermented lemonade. Takes 2 days. That's it.
Really?
Yeah. 2 quarts of water.
Okay.
A cup of lemon juice.
Okay.
Fresh squeezed lemon, or 1.5 cups. Then you're going to take a half a cup of sucanat, which is an unprocessed sugar. And then you can either use like kefir starter, they say whey starter, but if you don't want to use dairy, if you have some kombucha lying around, throw the kombucha in there. And that's how I made this one, was with my kombucha.
Did you make the kombucha too?
Yeah, I do. And then I have all these SCOBY, so if anybody wants a SCOBY.
So good.
Isn't it good?
Yes, if you guys want to know where I am, I'm going to be drinking this, eating that, and taking down some sauerkraut juice. This is
Yeah.
good stuff, Chef Adrienne. We always appreciate it when you come on Bloom.
Well, thank you, Gayle, so much. And I love Bloom for being able to share all these things, especially brain health. That we need it for all of our lives, right? And as we
Yes.
get older and menopausal, postmenopausal, that gut microbiome, keeping our brain healthy. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, we're going to share Chef Adrienne's recipes on BloomTampaBay.com. And before we go to break, it's time for today's Bloom trivia question. True or false? The brain is the fattiest organ in the human body. We'll have the answer later on Bloom. You're watching Bloom, presented by Lifeguard Imaging. We begin where your checkup ends. Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today.
The following portion of Bloom is sponsored by TV Bookers on behalf of Live Forever Health.
Welcome back to Bloom. For women, our day-to-day busy lives should not get in the way of prioritizing our health. Joining me now from Live Forever Health is Tiffany Alexander, the Director of Clinical Education and a nurse practitioner with ways to transform your health from reactive to proactive. It's so great to have you on Bloom.
Thank you.
So, we are so busy as women. We juggle our professional lives and then, of course, our families. So how can we keep our health a priority?
So we got to make sure we're checking labs, making sure we're keeping up with our health. We can do that via telehealth with our providers. Check your labs, check your symptoms, making sure you're staying up to date, not just living life, let it go by, and not treating your symptoms if you're not feeling well. So we're able to do that all from the comfort of your home.
And what would you say are some everyday struggles for women that could be treated maybe with hormone therapy? Because this is something that you do offer as well.
Correct. So we offer hormone therapy, weight loss, and many other products in Live Forever Health, about 3,000 products, but specifically for women, we treat hot flashes, perimenopause, and anything in between. So if you're suffering from hot flashes or anything like that, we like to get some labs in, and then after that, we would treat you with some hormone therapy.
Now, what drew you into this profession? And tell me a little bit about your own personal journey.
So I'm a wounded healer, I like to say. I did have a little bit of my own hormonal issues, and that's how I got into this profession. I've been doing it since I was about 15 years old, and that's 17 years ago now. So it's been a great journey.
And how can LFH help women navigate aging with confidence and kind of get rid of the stigma that comes along with that?
There's a lot of this. You shouldn't be suffering from, having hot flashes or having any issues with dealing with your everyday life and having no motivation, no drive, no energy for the kids, not wanting to spend time with your husband. So that's why we're here to help you optimize all of those aspects in your life.
That's great. And are there additional products that work well, kind of in conjunction with hormone therapy?
Yes, we have many products, anything from brain optimization, so brain health, to We have about 3,000 products, so we can go all over that, but I don't think we have enough time for that today. But I would suggest booking an appointment on our website and speaking with one of our birth-certified providers.
And I think that's what's so beautiful about this is that you can do this on a telehealth level, because so many women, including myself, I'll just put myself on the back burner. I missed my annual checkup because I got busy with the kids and busy with life, and you do tend to put yourself last.
Right, especially women. I feel like we're the ones that take care of the household. We take care of the kids. We take care of everything. And you can do it from the comfort of your home. All you have to do is get on a Zoom call, literally 30 minutes. You could be driving, you could be doing whatever you need to do, and just make that little bit of time for yourself to optimize your overall well-being and health.
Yeah, and these changes with the hormone replacement therapy or even getting your thyroid checked, whatever is bringing you down, can make a world of difference in how you feel.
Yes, absolutely. Even thyroid. If your thyroid is slow, everything will be slow. If your hormones are not optimal, not to the point where they should be, you will definitely feel it. And it's not you, it's your hormones.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Bloom. This has been so interesting.
Thank you for having me.
And for more information, you can visit liveforeverhealth.com. Bloom will be right back.
The preceding portion of Bloom was sponsored by TV Bookers on behalf of Live Forever Health.
Welcome back to Bloom. Beverly Hills Cop Axel Foley is now streaming exclusively on Netflix, and a Tampa Bay actor is part of all the action right alongside Eddie Murphy and Kevin Bacon. Joining me now with more is actor Joseph Aviel. Joseph, welcome to Bloom. What a pleasure it is to have you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Gayle.
So talk to me, what was it like being part of such, a big brand name?
To be with Eddie, Kevin, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Judge Reinhold, all the guys, Mark Pellegrino, it was surreal because not only are you on set doing the scenes, but when you get break time and you're eating dinner with Kevin and Mark. And Eddie didn't eat dinner with us, but we had many times when we were just alone, like in between scenes, and just to see Eddie give an eyebrow, it's surreal.
That is so cool. So a little bit about, bringing the band back together for another Beverly Hills Cop. What can the viewers expect? I know I'm going to be the first to start streaming this as soon as this interview is over. It looks like an amazing movie.
I just saw it for the first time at the Netflix theater in Hollywood a couple days ago. And to me, it's the best Beverly Hills yet, maybe even Eddie's best movie yet. Jerry Bruckheimer brought in an Australian director named Mark Malloy, and he hit a grand slam. And so Bruckheimer, Eddie Murphy, producers, Mark Malloy directing, and all the John Ashton, Judge Reinhold, Serge, Bronson, Pinche. So they're all back, and they're just lit up. And the stunt guys, 5150 was terrific. They didn't do CGI out of the world here. They did practical stunts, which is very rare today. So everything was really, it felt real. I had a great stunt man, fantastic guy, but I asked him, can I please do my stunts? And he said, no problem. No problem.
Which you're more than capable of doing, because fitness is like your second. I'm going to get into all your loves here in just a second, but fitness is a big thing for you.
Yeah, I've been training bodybuilding since 1974. I was 10 years old, so you do the math, okay? So, and I knew about Arnold before he was famous. I actually body doubled Arnold. Over time, I became body double for Paramount, and I grabbed his shoulder and squeezed it, and I said, I'm holding the world's most famous deltoid. And he looked at me like, let go. And so I got to do the scene from The Bubble, which is a long story, which I won't go into. But yeah, been training since my dad was a bodybuilder and a police officer in New Jersey, and country music. And so I grew up with a very wide variety of blessings. I was blessed in enormous ways. My mother and father were fantastic. And they brought us here to Clearwater in 1981.
Okay.
And when my brother and I looked out of the hotel window at Pier 60, I was 17, he was 15. We said, who turned the lights on? It just went from black and white to color.
Right.
And we never wanted ever to go back.
Yeah.
And so over the years, we did go off and do things in Europe and other Hollywood. But Clearwater Beach, I live there now with my wife, whose birthday is today.
Yay, happy birthday.
Which is funny because she's only 25 and we've been married 30 years.
How does that work?
I don't know. We have 5 children, 3 grandchildren.
Oh.
And I'm blessed God has poured out so much mercy and grace on me.
Well, speaking of blessings, you know, you've poured out a lot of blessings just from your own personal missions. I read about you that you actually transitioned from being a humanitarian to an actor. So you've worn different hats throughout your life, like your parents raised you to do.
Yeah, when we came to Clearwater, like I said, I was 17, and I met some amazing people in Dunedin and Clearwater. My brother and sister went to Dunedin High, and I went to Trinity College, which used to be on Edgewater Drive in Dunedin, and I became a missionary. And from 1991 till about 2008, I was working in Sarajevo, Kosovo for the Albanians, like the A instead of the O, and Albania, Montenegro, and had such an amazing time. It plays like a movie in my head. But when I came home, I was like, how do I top that, or even get equal to it? And I met a director who invited me to be in his movie. And ever since then, I consider myself to be a missionary to the Hollywood people, which I have this crazy story.
Okay.
I met Shirley MacLaine. Now, you know Shirley and I have different theologies. Shirley invited me to her house. We spent 7 hours at Point Dume, overlooking the Pacific, watching an award show, which she commented on everyone who went to the podium, which was awesome. I wish I had taped that because she has stories way back. And Shirley and I discussed theology, prophecy, the Bible for 7 hours. And finally she said, Joseph, you've been here for 7 hours. You have to go. And I said, you're right, Cheryl, I'm going. But that's the kind of thing that God has done. He's taken me to places that I never, ever would have thought this could happen in my life. And so I have multiple stories, Gayle, but we don't have the time.
That means multiple visits.
Yes,
on Bloom.
I'll be back.
All right, I love it. I'm holding you to that.
Okay.
All right, it's such a pleasure meeting you, and congratulations on all your successes in life.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we're going to share this story on BloomTampaBay.com. We'll be back with more Bloom right after this.
The following portion of Bloom is sponsored by Renewal by Andersen of Tampa.
Welcome back to Bloom. It's time for your window to the weekend, brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Tampa. And we found a way for you to stay cool and entertained in this summer heat. Tampa Theater is bringing your favorite films back to the big screen on Sundays all summer long. Joining me now is Film Program Manager at Tampa Theater, James DeFord. James, it's so great to see you.
Thanks, Gayle. Yeah, it's great to be here.
So talk to me a little bit about Tampa Theater's Summer Classic series. I know it's been around for decades now.
Yeah, Summer Classics is one of our core series. Throughout the summer, Sundays at 3 p.m., we offer a selection of some of the bigger blockbustery kind of classic movies, the kind of things that you grew up loving or watching on TV, but this time on a big screen and with the full effect of being in a historic cinema.
Yeah, and really exciting for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid fans. I mean, you talk about cowboy buddies right there, you have it.
Yeah, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid on Sunday. That movie is a fantastic sort of twist on Westerns. You know, Robert Redford and Paul Newman start a cowboy movie that's kind of like about what happens at the end of every other cowboy movie. And it comes together as a comedy, as a drama, a romance. It's a fantastic movie.
Let's talk a little bit about the history of Tampa Theater. Sure. I mean, my family has been here for generations. My grandmother would go and pay pennies on the dollar to see a film back in the day at Tampa Theater. It really is part of the fabric of our community. Absolutely, yeah.
Tampa Theater was opened in 1926, so we've been almost 100 years now serving the community with film and events. When it was built, it was thought of as a palace for the people. It was a democratized way to experience entertainment, right even in the heart of the Great Depression, that was available and inexpensive. And we think it's half of our mission to keep it that way, to keep it as a place that everyone in the community can come to and enjoy. And as a result, we try to stay as busy as we can and put on as much entertainment as we can.
That's so cool. I love the history. You reminded me that my late Nana Katie would talk about, she grew up in the Great Depression, and she would talk about what a thrill it was to go to that theater and just have that cultural experience that you describe. And I know that the Tampa Theater is so popular that you're going through a big expansion right now, correct?
Yeah, that's true. Just a few weeks ago, we opened our first ever second screening room. So besides the big historic hall that's been there for 98 years, we now have a 43-seat micro cinema that is right underneath our same historic marquee. It is state-of-the-art video and audio technology. It is a really fantastic way to immerse yourself in a film and see it as it's meant to be seen.
In addition to films, people should log on to your website because you have great speakers, comedians, so much.
Tons of concerts, live podcasts, comedians, like you say. Yeah, it's surprising how intimate a room can feel that has 1,200 chairs in it, but you're very close to the stage and you're eye level with people a lot of the time.
Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing more about the summer classics, and we appreciate all that you do at Tampa Theater. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.
And you can watch Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid this Sunday at 3 p.m. We're going to share everything that you need to know about the Summer Classics film series on BloomTampaBay.com. We'll be back with more Bloom right after this.
The preceding portion of Bloom was sponsored by Renewal by Andersen of Tampa.
It's time for your Bloom Boost, health news you might have missed. Experts are urging parents to avoid the summer slide with fun activities that promote healthy brain function for our kids. And believe it or not, that can include STEM toys. The Bloom team found one called the Stomp Rocket, which encourages exercise, promotes STEM learning, and limits screen time. So our Bloom interns put it to the test.
All right, we got a fun toy today at Bloom. We got the Stomp Rocket. It encourages exercise, promotes STEM, limits screen time, indoor, outdoor fun. It was super easy to put together. It took us like 5 minutes, so if we can do it, you definitely can. And let's try it out.
All right, that was so much fun. Thanks to our Bloom interns, who are amazing, by the way. And it is time now for today's Bloom trivia question. True or false? The brain is the fattiest organ in the human body. The answer is true. 60% of the human brain is made of fat, making it the fattiest organ in the human body. Well, we hope you'll tune in again on the next Bloom presented by Lifeguard Imaging. We're dedicating our show to dealing with loss. We'll tell you about a nonprofit established in memory of Emily Morgan Pierce, who spent half of her life battling childhood cancer. The No More Umbrellas Foundation helps families and kids fighting cancer and other hardships. And meet the author of Believe, a memoir of in stories, whose seemingly fairy tale life turned to a life-altering tragedy. Learn how she used self-discovery and faith to persevere. Stay healthy, everyone, and I will see you on the next Bloom.
Content segments during Bloom were paid for by TV bookers on behalf of Live Forever Health and Renewal by Andersen of Tampa.
Call now 813-582-5222 to schedule your scan today.